do it by lot coverage. It's similar to what they do in the city. However, up here, the percentage would be that much smaller. Would that be correct, Richard?
Yes.
So, you could be up 30, 40% coverage or more in the city. Here, the maximum we have is about 10% lot coverage. You offset that, however, by the fact that the lots are so much bigger. So a typical lot on a medium-sized lake like Bass Lake would be about 100 feet of frontage and half an acre. And in that particular category, your lot coverage is about 8%. So what goes in lot coverage would be your garage, if you have a separate garage, your coverage of your building. So not necessarily how much square footage you have of living space, but the square footage of the roof itself. Then, what else? What other things that go into that calculation are things like sheds that are over 108 square feet. By the way, 108 square feet is the tipping point to where you need a building permit. Boat houses also go into that calculation. So any structures that are basically creating a shadow on the ground or covering a piece of the earth is considered to be lot coverage. So it's really.
Let me ask you one question. What would be the process if I wanted, instead of 10%, I wanted to go to 11% or 12%? Is there a process that people have to go through, and how difficult is that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Richard. It's you could do that by way of minor variance. In my experience, having done a number of these, they will support maybe up to a 10% variance. So, for example, if you're on a lake that has 8% coverage, you might get an extra 0.8 or less in relief via variance. On the larger lakes, you might get up to 11%, but a lot of factors kind of go into it.
Mm-hmm.
And they may also want you to make a concession in another area. For example, if you were really close to coverage and you wanted to build a garage and you needed relief of 100 square feet, let's say, and they say, okay, well, we're gonna grant you the variance to build your garage. However, you see that shed over there that's been there for a while, we want you to take that down as part of your agreement to do this. So I think the goal ultimately is to keep it to the 10%, not have too much coverage on the lot, and ultimately the reason is that they want to keep our lakes healthy.
Okay. Is there a further level? Like, say, I went to the group there, and all of a sudden I thought, no, I really want more. Is there a second level like there would be in the city? You can go to committee of adjustment, or we can go to what we used to call the OMB.
Yeah, well, the OMB has changed a little bit. I think it's now more local. If I'm reading that correctly.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The problem is that once you set precedents, right, then everybody is going to be wanting it. So I think they really stick close to that that level. Now, there is one more piece of information that you should know, is that depending on the township and bylaws, there may be a little bit of a different situation when you're back 200 feet from the water or X number of feet from the water, depending on the municipality. So you really need someone who is efficient at negotiating the bylaw, knows the township, has a good relationship with the people there, so you could get information that you want and need to make your buying decision or your selling decision in a timely manner. So I think there was a question there, Richard. Do we?
Yep. About do people ever sever lots if
they have a lot of land? Yeah, that's a good question as well. And there's a whole other set of bylaws that
You're freezing.
Send me a note or
Sorry.
uh,
You just
sorry.
froze for a second, Sean. You just froze for a second. So you might want to repeat.
Okay. So I don't know where I lost you there, but essentially we were talking about lot creation.
Yes.
And so with lot creation, you're going to need um, a specific amount of frontage, a specific amount of land in order to make the application. But I'm certainly happy to talk to you offline about the details of your particular area, Irma. Thank you for that question. So the next thing I want to cover, now that we have a greater understanding of what lot coverage looks like, are a couple of the items that go into that. So, for example, typically you're allowed one main dwelling. So that would be your main cottage. And usually you're also allowed a garage, provided you're within the lot coverage that we've talked about. But in most places, you're also allowed a sleeping cabin, or what we know better as a bunkie.
Bunky,
So
yeah.
a bunkie, yeah. So, in the township of Muskoka Lakes, the maximum square footage for a bunkie is 650 square feet. So now you have your main cottage, you have your garage. The bunkie can actually be living space above the garage if you're short on coverage, but the maximum for a sleeping cabin or bunkie is 600 square feet in the township of Muskoka Lakes.
That 650 square feet for the bunkie, that's a 5 or 6 person apartment in downtown Toronto.
Yeah, definitely. I remember looking for a condo a couple years ago, and thought it was pretty crazy to live in 500 square feet.
Exactly.
And so my inability to pull the trigger on that has certainly cost me.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing to know about a sleeping cabin is that it can also be on top of a boathouse. So you see 2-story boathouses, it's a huge price determiner or value enhancer when you have a boathouse that's got living above. It seems to be the dream for a lot of people when it comes to owning a waterfront property. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So boathouses, if they're existing, they're grandfathered in most cases. But to erect a new boathouse, you need a minimum of 300 feet straight line frontage. And so, and it's restricted to the larger lakes. So to get a boathouse, all of a sudden you're looking at property that could be $8,000 a foot, and you need a minimum of 300 feet. So you can see that very quickly, the investment adds up to have the ability to have a sleeping cabin on top of your boathouse.
Exactly. Rick has a question here. Do any of the municipalities in your area require an approved septic system plan prior to reviewing or approving your building permit application?
That is a good question. Let me speak to Muskoka Lakes. It's a separate permit, but certainly if you're asking for any sort of relief, i.e., a minor variance, they may want to see that it's on a smaller lot, and you're asking for relief to be able to build on that lot. They may want the septic inspector to come out to see your plan and make sure that the land is capable of handling that septic system. Their technology is provided for systems that occupy smaller spaces. I'm not an expert on septic systems outside of general knowledge, but there are systems out there now that you could put in place that would take up a much smaller footprint, but they may or may not, depending on the situation with the subject property.
I do have to say it, but I think relief is very important when you have a septic system.
Oh my.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? That one really stunk, Richard.
Thank you.
All right. Bum. So key learning on all of this is that You really need to know your stuff if you're looking to develop a piece of land. Also, if you're buying a property that already has a building on it, and you decide that you have dreams for a sleeping cabin or a boathouse, make sure you really know what the bylaws are. The last point on this one is setbacks from high water mark is 66 feet or 20 meter. There are some municipalities that want a little bit more, 75 or 100 feet.
After last year's experience, do you think that those dimensions are going to change?
Are you speaking about
With the flooding?
flooding? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that they will, and I'm not sure in all cases that being further back from the water would have helped.
Ah.
So we're talking about a lake that rose at least about 3 feet above a property I was selling at the time, above the dock. That the building there was fine because there was a little bit of elevation to the lot. So
Right.
if you remember last week, we talked about topography and how important it is for getting down to the water, or if you have elderly with parents, or thinking about that long term. So there's another part to topography when it comes to flooding now. If you have a bit of elevation and you don't think that elevation is going to impede your mobility in years to come, that's probably a good thing if you're on Lake Muskoka or on the Moon River.
Perfect. Next slide, shore
Yes,
allowance. Yes.
Shore road allowance.
Just a reminder for everybody, please turn off or mute your microphones.
So this is a pretty common question. It's something that I check on whether I'm working for a buyer or a seller pretty much immediately. And it's something that doesn't make sense to a lot of us, because why is there a shore road allowance? What the idea is that anybody who was using the waterways, and this is back when they were creating lots 100 years ago or less or more, for them to be able to have access to the shore. What it is a 66-foot piece of land between the high water mark back then and the property that is still owned or partly owned by the municipality. Mm-hmm. Sorry, that may not be clear. What it is a piece of land that the municipality originally owned.
Right.
There is no use for it from the municipality's standpoint anymore. So many people feel that they would prefer to own the property right to the water, and I agree. So it is available to purchase from the municipality, and if for a typical 100-foot lot, you're looking at the costs of the surveyor and a lawyer to get all their work done, but you're paying, of course, a little bit of money to the municipality because you're buying land from them. But you're typically around under $10,000 to buy that piece of land for a 100-foot property. Where this is important is, first of all, owning right to the water is really important. Again, I agree. But the other part is that it adds square footage to your lot. So if you have an extra 6,600 feet of square footage added to your lot, well, guess what? Now we know that we have a percentage lot coverage. You might get a few extra feet out of owning the shore road allowance.
Perfect.
People have fears around shore road allowance because they think that because it's owned by the municipality, somebody could, grab a canoe and come and pull up on their shore and pitch a tent and have a free camping spot for the night. Fair fear, but in practicality, I've never seen that happen.
Great. And anyways, if something like that happens, we can always call on you and you'll get them off the property.
Yes, I'm a full service agent, so I can be your squatter disposal system.
Whoops, there we go. Sorry.
No problem.
Land transfer tax.
Yeah. So won't spend a ton of time here. The key to know about land transfer tax is that you're outside of Toronto. So, I think it
You
was
really
back.
know how to hurt somebody, John. You really know how to hurt
Hey,
us.
listen, you're used to it there now. I get it. It's
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah,
But,
yeah.
you're going to pay about half of your land transfer tax here than you would in the city. So, $1 million property in the city, you're about 16,500 provincial, probably about the same. I always go to whatever calculator I have on my computer and figure it out. And I always see the Toronto line below that doubles it up. The good news about investing in cottage country, just one tax. You don't get hit a second time.
Mm. Okay, should we move forward?
Yeah, let's do it. So we're going to
Okay.
talk about a second tax here now.
Yeah, the foreign buyers tax. Interesting.
Uh-huh. So, back in 2017, the government, put the foreign buyers tax, government on Ontario, put the foreign buyers tax in place to cool down the market. I always sort of wondered, which is a bit of a different topic, is are they going to help us when the market's depressed?
Yeah.
Only to calm it, but also to stimulate it. I think we have a bit of an answer there. I mean, they seem to be helping right now to the extent that they can. But the key point here is that Muskoka, and essentially when you're going north of the Severn River, so Port Severn area and north, the foreign buyers tax is not applicable.
That's
So
great.
when we
Yeah, it's
have,
interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so if we have somebody, and I've acted for many clients from out of country who are looking to invest in a waterfront property in Muskoka, that tax will not apply to them.
Great. Okay.
So
Next.
I don't think there's much more to say about that one.
No, but it's interesting. I know that with the GTA, there was a really distinct change in the market when the government of Ontario added that tax. And it did have repercussions for a number of months, even though it didn't
Sure.
seem at the end of the day that there was that much purchasing going on. But the repercussions were not great for the marketplace. Anyways.
Yeah, it certainly accomplished what their goal was, which was to cool the market. And I think until we hit our health crisis, not our home crisis, we were starting to see the high end come back in Toronto, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were.
So how are our questions now? Are we good, or?
I think we're pretty good right now. I'm checking to see if there's any more. There hasn't been since Rick's.
Okay.
Unless I'm missing anything. No,
Cool.
I think we're good right now.
Cool. So now I want to switch into some of the reasons why people love to be here. Certainly now I know there's lots who would like to hit the golf course or being able to social distance on the golf course. But there's about 25 public and private Muskoka golf courses, and I'm calling these Muskoka moments, and we'll go through a few of them. So. If you're a golfer, the natural beauty of golf courses up here is outstanding. They are difficult, and I used to have a bit of a game years ago, but since I became a realtor, that went out the window.
Oh yeah,
yeah, especially in the summer when people are in the area. So I'll meet people at golf courses, but I won't be golfing myself. Lots of people come to the area. Get memberships at one of the beautiful places that we have up here, and really enjoy Muskoka on the golf course. Some of them you can even get to by water, which is pretty cool if you're on one of the big lakes to throw your clubs in the boat and run over to the golf course. And as you mentioned last week, Richard, some may even come by plane.
Of course, when we're going to park our private planes there, drive up in our boats.
I remember years ago, the course called the Rock, which is at the Marriott, used to do helicopter golf excursions. So they would pick somebody up in Toronto, bring them to the course, let them play their round of the day, and then chopper them back to the city. I thought that was pretty cool.
I think that's the way everybody should live. Okay, the Cranberry Festival. It's
Okay,
wonderful.
yeah, isn't it neat?
Yeah, it's
So
very neat.
Bala is considered to be the cranberry capital of North America, I believe they call themselves. And so in the fall, it's always the weekend after uh, Thanksgiving is the Cranberry Festival,
Yeah.
and it's almost like an outdoor fair. It's a lot of fun, and we'll talk about the Key to Bala in a second. I'm sure everybody's heard of that. What I like about the Cranberry Marsh, and it's Johnston Cranberries in the area, is one of the cranberry harvesters, is that in the winter, it's really, really cool. They've created this outdoor skating loop right through the marsh. It's about 1.2 kilometers. You know, you can rent skates there. They have a fire going, and they have
Mm.
multiple wine and experience that is becoming more and more popular here in the winter. So suffice it to say, there's lots to do in the summer, but if you're a winter person, there's some fantastic things to enjoy in the winter as
Yeah,
well.
we did. Are we? Well, we're going to talk about. Are we going to talk about skiing at all?
I didn't put skiing in the Muskoka Moments section here.
But
There are a few ski, like Moonstone is maybe 40 minutes from
yeah,
Muskoka. So if you're into skiing, you can be at the Cottage and pop over there. Well, there's wonderful ice fishing. There's a second sort of outdoor skating area a little bit north of Huntsville, and also some of the local arenas on Saturdays will have free public skating at the arenas. So there's lots to do around beyond sitting in front of the fire, and more people are enjoying their time up here in the winter.
perfect. So the
So
Key to Bala, yes.
have you ever been there, Richard? Have
No, you
you?
know what, I haven't, and I wanted to go, but I haven't been able to yet.
Yeah, so it is quite the experience. It is, you know, when I was a little bit younger, I would go there more, but I still do try to get there every so often. And I was very fortunate a few years back to see the tragically hip 2 nights in a row there. But you know,
Wow,
there's a long history with this building. It's like it's walking into a really old boathouse right on the water
there
with
it
a
is.
there it is, and you can see the deck. So people are out there on the deck, right inside the doors there's a huge stage that is elevated, opens down onto a big dance floor, and it is a really fun time. They've had some amazing bands there, and you know, the story goes decades ago they would have big bands in there and dancing, and
Yeah.
this is a real icon when it comes to the area.
What's the dates usually? Is it?
So it's definitely a summer venue. You
Yeah.
can expect
Ah,
something happening there, you know, pretty much every weekend in the summer, and definitely they bring in bigger acts for long weekends, and you know, Cranberry Festival, for example, they'd have some stuff going on there. There's always fun to be had there, and in Ballad in general.
yeah. There's also the boat festival, which I love during the summer, and I've been there, and that's pretty amazing. There's some wonderful boats up there. The Muskoka boats.
Yeah, we do have a slide. We'll talk about that in a bit, because the steamship, the history up here
Oh
is
yeah,
pretty special. But to your point, they also have in-water boat shows a couple times through the summer. We
yeah.
we typically try to have a booth at those, and showcase some of the properties we have for sale, and meet with people one-on-one. So it's not uncommon to see me there, you know, in shorts and a golf shirt, chatting to people and enjoying the sunshine on a Saturday afternoon. So come and see us there as well.
Yeah, I've been, and it's a lot of fun, and I'm just amazed by the attention and detail in some of those boats. They're fabulous, really.
Yeah, there's some really neat stuff like old gentleman racers and
Hmm.
antique boats from
Yeah,
70 and 80 years ago.
yeah.
It's really worth a trip to experience some of Muskoka's history and boating history.
So the
So
trails.
trails,
Take us on
lots
a
of
walk.
lots of trails around. So if you're one who likes to take your dog on a nice hike and be in nature, this is the place. Um, that you have lots of options to do that. So we've got lots of wildlife, lots of bird options, and lots of mammals. I was driving earlier today and saw 3 deer jump off the road as I was
Ugh,
driving by, and they're beautiful. And saw a couple turkeys today as well. So it's always around.
yeah.
And hiking's a great way to take into the area and get some exercise as well.
And I would think that these trails would be great places to ski as well, to do the cross country
Uh,
skiing.
Yeah, they're definitely not groomed for that,
Ah,
but
okay.
there is Arrowhead Provincial Park, which is the place that also offers the outdoor skating, and they actually do a evening skate as well, where they've got tiki torches lighting up the whole trail. So that's really neat. But that's where you would go for some cross country skiing, or you can break trail on the ice when it's safe.
So Irma has a question. Any
Sure.
idea of what approximately percentage of cottages are winterized, and how much more would that add to the value, approximately, of being a winterized property?
Yeah, that's a good question, and we would need to address that on a case by case basis. I would say, you're still, it would just be a guess, to be honest, but you're maybe 30-40% are still 3 season.
Yeah.
They're typically older cottages, but you see a movement towards tearing these down and rebuilding, because what happens is if the building's that old, it's typically the foundation is piers and not a full
Hmm.
foundation. So in order for you to go from 3 season all of a sudden to 4 season, there's
Right.
quite a bit that you would need to do underneath. If you were just coming for a weekend and roughing it a bit, you could perhaps put enough insulation to keep the water winterized and kind of go halfway.
Yeah.
I like we talked about last week. Turnkey gets a premium from a sales standpoint. So if you were investing in a property and making sure that it was fully winterized, had a furnace, had winter water or even a well, and had decent insulation, and also proper ventilation in the attic, because that ice damming can be a problem. So if you're checking all of those boxes, you're certainly going to create value for yourself because you'll be providing a turnkey situation.
I also think that probably a lot would have to do about road access, or whether it's a water access property. There'd be times with a water access property you wouldn't be able to get to it at all.
That's definitely a good point. So we did touch on this a bit last week. Having a year-round municipally maintained road certainly has its advantages. That doesn't mean that you can't have a private road that's also winter maintained. That happens quite often. But there is typically, to your point, a blackout period for those trying to get to an island property. And we're never
Yeah.
quite sure how long that's going to be because we're completely weather dependent. There's lots of work still happening on islands through the winter when they can get out there. So you'll see them go out on snowmobile or by what's called a scoot. I don't know if you're familiar with what that is,
No.
but
Mm-mm.
it's like a reinforced small boat with a propeller on the back, almost like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Like you see in Florida on the
exact,
Everglades.
exactly. So it's that type of setup on the back and a reinforced hull on a boat that will cruise across the ice. So we've got hoverboat, we've got snowmobile, and we've got a scoot that can take you over in the winter. But
And
it's
what about my private airplane though?
Yeah, you can get there with your private airplane. You'll need somebody with skis on their plane, but you know the key point is that there's definitely a blackout period when you won't be able to get there, and prepare yourself to have a good boat that's covered for your late fall excursions.
Yeah.
So, Muskoka Moment steamships. So we talked
Hmm.
again a little bit last week about the history of the area and the fact that people used to get around by steamships, and that's how they would get to their property. And so we still do have two steamships. So well, there's more than that. There's two or three steamships that are sitting in the Gravenhurst
Yeah.
Harbor,
Yeah.
and
I see them all the time.
there's also a beautiful museum there with tons of old boats and stuff. So not only will you be able to come and see the in-water boat show, you could take a tour on the Seguin or the Winona, which sometimes have special events on there. There's a bar there. You can sit and enjoy the sights, take a look at some of the beautiful cottages along the way. And even through Port Carling, you could go through the lock system to get to Rosso and Joe. It's a great afternoon. Highly recommended. It'll take you back to the origins of.
Sean, I think you have a tough life up there. You know, work, work, work.
You're right, Richard. I really do. One thing I can say about my office is it's pretty darn beautiful.
Right. Okay. Now you're speaking my language. When it comes to food, I'm in.
Yeah, well, I think somebody mentioned last week that I need to talk about Weber's. So I really did leave the best for last. So Weber's, anybody who's come to Muskoka, if they've missed Weber's, they've missed the opening experience to your arrival. So I remember, decades ago going there. They used to only sell chocolate shakes, not chocolate and vanilla and strawberry. There was one kind. It was a chocolate shake, and that was it. So my go-to order there is a cheeseburger, fries, and a chocolate shake. And I would say probably 75-80% of people will order the same thing. It's yeah. Lori tells us it's still just
chocolate shakes. Well, the reality is, as far as I'm concerned, it's only a chocolate shake. I don't know of any other kind.
And I would absolutely agree with it. So what they did, from a safety standpoint, if I remember correctly, I think it goes to a Toronto event where you had this bridge. So they had this footbridge installed, and you will often see both sides of the road completely packed. You're going to see it packed, and you're going to see the lineup right out the door. And I'm not sure, Lori, is Keyman still there? I haven't been there in a couple years. Keyman was the guy who was always flipping the burgers there, and Lori says he's still there.
Yes, he's still there.
And for those who haven't been there, you can sit on a train car and eat your lunch there, or they have beautiful grounds that you can sit at a picnic table. And they've just added a Starbucks recently. So, there's no question that it is a absolute must to stop there to enjoy Weber's.
It'll be interesting how they're going to deal with social distancing if this continues much longer. I'm sure people are still going to have to stand in line, but it'll be a long lineup.
It is, because when you go in the front doors there, it's pretty tight quarters in there. So that lineup's going to be really long, and Lori, good for you, because I am hoping to get there this week.
And they are doing social distancing. Oh my God! Listen, would you when you're there, would you pick up a burger and a chocolate shake for me, please?
I'm definitely going to do that. So you've just given me permission to have two, and I'm gonna send it to you via Instagram. How's that?
Okay, perfect. That's absolutely great.
So that kind of wraps up. Yeah, that kind of wraps up this week's session. I hope everybody enjoyed it, and let's open it up to some questions.
I'm going to stop the share, And I'm going to unmute everybody. So be careful what you say, people. And if we have any questions, anybody, any other questions or things that they want to know about? Nope. No. Yes. No. You can
Yes, no.
speak now if you want. You're unmuted, everybody. No.
All right. Well,
Okay. Wonderful.
Thanks. If you do have any questions, you know how to. Is needing to take a boat a big hindrance? So Irma, there's just one question here. Is needing to take a boat a big hindrance? So imagine you're coming to the cottage. I assume you're talking about a boat access property, Irma. But yeah, okay. So lots of boat access. Imagine you're coming with your family. You've just battled the traffic on the 400. You've arrived. It's now 10 o'clock at night and it's dark. So unless you know your way really well, that can certainly be challenging
And dangerous.
And dangerous, right? And so you have a lot of people who absolutely adore living on an island. There are some advantages there, but it can be a challenge at times. And what I explain to my buyer clients and my seller clients who are entertaining a island property is that it's much easier from a price standpoint to get into the property, but you're going to pay double for everything afterwards. Yeah. So the idea of bringing material over or furniture or getting your septic pumped or propane if you need it, all that stuff, there's an extra step because you've got to find a way to get it there.
And I'm sure there's lots of people in service industries who would say, well, I'm not, I don't work on an island. I'll only work on land.
Yeah, well, they certainly do because it's easier for them, but there are lots of people who service island properties and are really, really good. So you will get the job done. It's just going to cost you a bit more. Yeah. And then when you go to sell, there's a smaller sliver of the market that will entertain an island property. Did I lose you?
No, you didn't. I can hear you.
Okay, good. Yeah,
we're good.
So that's a consideration, is just understanding that it's going to be a different experience to get your stuff taken care of out there, and it's going to be a different experience. You might be on the market for longer when and if you try to sell.
Listen, Sean, thank you very, very much for coming and doing this. I really appreciate it. For some reason, I did not get to tape the beginning part of this of this event, but I will post it later on our Facebook page, and you'll be able to hear as much as I did record. And I think we're probably looking at least 3/4 of it. So I just want to say thank you to Sean. Thank you for everybody, especially with the people who ask great questions. And hopefully, this time next year, you'll be in your cottage.
Yeah, absolutely. So just reach out, folks, to Richard or myself if you have any more questions. We're always here to help, and we'll see you up in Muskoka as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I need that burger and shake. I tell you, I better get it fast.
You know what, Richard? That one's on me. I'll meet you there on the way up.
Exactly. Thanks again, Sean. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and really appreciate it. And we'll post later on today. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.